speaking of fiction, I thought I would tell you about a shelf in that direction, near the door on that side. It's called Staff Recommends. That is where the wonderful book nerds who work here and who, when they're not here, are at home reading, with a little display of all their favorite books that they've read recently. So if you are looking for some literary influences or some literary fun, check that shelf before you go. Our next reader is Abby White. Abby White has done a bunch of things at the Nashville Scene and Focus magazine and the Nashville Post, and she is the former editor of Her Nashville magazine, all of which has given her the opportunity to do what she loves: observe and interact with human beings and write about them, usually with their permission. She is the founding editor of the Scene's women's column, Vodka, which the Association of Alternative News Media named Best Column in the Country in 2014 and 2016. She's the development director at MTSU's College of Media and Entertainment, and she remains a contributing editor at the Scene. Please enjoy Abby's story, Bookshelf Envy.
To be honest, prepping for today's theme of literary influences caused me to panic. I panicked because, until recently, I'd spent most of my adult life working as a writer or an editor, and I suffer from the common insecure and pathetic afflictions of the trade. The constantly nagging feeling that my work is not good enough, or that I'm not contributing anything interesting or unique to the conversation, and that it's just a matter of time before everyone figures out that I have no idea what I'm doing. Why would anyone care who my literary influences are? If I'd been invited to share my literary influences with you 30 years ago, I'd have no problem. I'd proudly show you my most recent stack of books from the Peoria Public Library, Lakeview Branch. We weren't allowed to watch much TV when I was growing up. We were encouraged to read and to play outside. I was okay with this. I was the kid who constantly bugged my mom to take me to the library. The kid who read books that weren't required by school. The kid who actually looked forward to writing essays in class. Books were a luxury to me. I didn't actually possess many of my own, so I would check out the maximum amount allowed from that tiny library, and I'd read them long before their due dates. If I checked out a book that was far beyond my level of comprehension, which I kept doing, my mother would tell me that someday I would understand it. But I was impatient. I wanted to understand it now. In the digital age, it's funny to look back at a time when information was not so easily accessible. I remember the year my parents ordered an encyclopedia set. My sister and I waited in anticipation until they arrived. Encyclopedias. The listicles of the 1980s. This is what happens when you don't let your kids watch cartoons. To us, that was access to at least a little bit of information about everything we were supposed to know. And that was something. Any kid who reads that many books is bound to try writing one, and I wrote a bunch. In first grade, I wrote a book about an ugly doll called Hannah, which was mostly drawings of a rag doll with a sloppily assembled storyline inspired by Little House on the Prairie. In second grade, I presented my fresh out of college teacher with a book called Beauty Tips, How to Catch Guys, because she wasn't married yet and I was kind of worried and thought she needed my help. And by the way, I still have it, and in case anyone wants to check it out, there's some really good advice in here. In third grade, I was accused of plagiarism, by my own sister, no less. She was totally right. I had essentially copied not only the plot, but actual sentences from a Babysitter's Club book. Another reason why I panicked at the idea of sharing my literary influences with you is because those were the first things that came to my mind. Babysitter's Club, plagiarism, a pretty offensive beauty, anti-feminist manual, and a lame ripoff of Little House on the Prairie. Shouldn't I be telling you how Virginia Woolf changed my life instead of talking about Anne M. Martin, who, by the way, wrote those Babysitter's Club books? Is this a safe place to admit that I hated On the Road and I only bought Dante's Inferno because I thought it sounded cool? When exactly do we become self-conscious about the things that we like? According to the internet, humans start developing self-awareness at 18 months, although I don't know of any toddlers who are embarrassed because they like Everyone Poops more than Goodnight Moon. It seems that at some point after that, we develop insecurities and fears about being judged for the things we enjoy. Music, movies, books, because they're not cool enough, or sophisticated enough, or challenging enough. Nobody wants to feel stupid. We all want to feel that, at the very least, we know a little bit about everything we're supposed to know. I moved to Nashville right after I graduated from the University of Illinois in 2001, and I remember visiting some of my new grown-up friends' houses. Some of them had the most incredible collections of books, walls and walls of dignified built-in bookcases showcasing all of the books that grown-ups are supposed to read. I felt envy. I wished I had that many books. I wish that I had a dignified built-in bookcase. That seemed like a very grown-up thing to aspire to. The bookshelf in my bedroom present day, which I assembled myself and then called my friend Tabitha to help me lift it and push it through the doorway. It only has so much space, and it's mostly filled with writers I discovered in adulthood. Dorothy Parker, Joan Didion, Alice Munro, and that stack of Latin books from that time I thought I could teach myself Latin. There's also a few books that survived the move from Illinois to Tennessee 15 years ago, and the many other moves around town and in life since. Tattered copies of all 8 books of Anne of Green Gables. Yes, there were 8. All of the Beatles books that my dad gave me because music was really the only ever thing we had to talk about together. Some of the chick lit bestsellers that my mother passed along to me, which I'll never hide in the back of the bookshelf because I don't believe that Sex and the City is any less culturally relevant than Little House on the Prairie. Each book was written by a woman, separated by a century, doing what every writer is advised to do. Write what you know. I'm still trying to figure out how to be a writer, or if I even am one. I'm still impatient, and I often feel stupid. I couldn't even get through the first chapter of James Joyce's Ulysses, but I still keep my copy of it. It's heavy, and it keeps my other books from falling over. And also, part of me thinks that someday I will understand it. Thank you.